Alright, so I'd like to show you a quick way of testing or auditioning a palette before committing to an entire painting. Now, on the note of study advice, I want to say that the painting we did here in Chapter 1, for example, this is great practice. You should do this. However, we all have daily lives and commitments and schedules. There's not always time to do a finished painting every day. And if you want to improve with color and painting or whatever you're interested in, there is a lot of science to say that practicing every single day is the best way to improve. But real life may not always allow for a finished painting every day. So how can we take the complexities of this practice and apply it to something quickly? You know, something you can do over a cup of coffee. Alright, so I've got my Photoshop interface set up here with my Gamut masked complementary palette. And what I want to do is just start sampling colors from it and block in a little quick environment. It's just going to be a ball sitting on a table. Of course, I'm sampling colors that I have access to with my complementary palette here. Now, I could change the values, of course. If I need a darker blue up top here for like the upper area, I could do that. The ball itself, let's make it the yellow color. Let's just put it right here. Okay, so there's a ball sitting in our environment. We need to give it some light and shadow, of course. I'll pretend light is coming down directly from above. So what I might do here is maybe sample one of these colors, dip the value, maybe gray it off a little bit, just to link it with that yellow. And do this, maybe I will actually get the yellow, mix that in, sample the result, paint in, just get this ball there. Let's get a shadow, a deep sort of soft shadow. And you can see I'm not really caring about line quality or shape quality as much as I would be even in a casual color key study. I care more about those things. In this one, I'm just caring about using these colors in the simplest object possible. And for my money, that's a ball. The reason it's a ball and not a cube or anything else is because a ball goes fully around. Therefore, it has all the problems of a painting, meaning you're going to have to deal with different values, different edges, you know, things like that as this ball needs to turn form. It's a bit of a highlight there. And okay, this is a basic study. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can maybe put some of these yellows into the environment. So I'll sample something here, maybe gray it off, and maybe there's a way to put these yellows in. So again, this is a complementary palette study. You could use any palette, of course, but the idea is to keep that subject matter so dead simple that it frees up your creativity space to explore color. Let's see, maybe I want to take those yellows. What's the maximum saturation I can get? Okay, about there. So let's dip the value a little bit and get maybe a little bit of a half tone going in this sphere as it turns. That's interesting. And maybe let's get a very grayed off purple and see if we get the value right. Maybe that can be snuck into this part of the ball. And look at this. That ball is starting to shimmer a little bit in this palette. Of course, a big part of what makes it shimmering is the light that I'm doing here. This relates back to Chapter 2's lesson on, you know, moving across the color palette. Moving across the color wheel, that is. And let's see, maybe you see how this shadow is kind of on the warm side? What happens if I get the purple and put in just a touch of this purplish reflected light? That is light bouncing up from the floor, coming into the shadows of this ball. And yeah, that's working. And then maybe I can get a smudge tool and just smudge the whole affair and let some colors mix kind of just on their own, courtesy of the smudge tool. And then maybe I'll go deeper and get just some ambient occlusion here in the shadow, which is a deepening of the shadow. It's where all the light is occluded, where the ambient light cannot enter. And then maybe here, if I lighten the purple a little bit. All right. So obviously the idea is that this painting took me 5 or 6 minutes. It took me longer that I'm speaking while I'm doing it. I could do this in probably 2 minutes if I weren't speaking. But now we have this cohesive palette study, and this sphere can become anything. It can become a human being, or a landscape, or a mountain, or boats moored to a dock or something. All right, let's try another one here. Let's switch up the canvas, start on black this time, for no other reason than just variety, not getting locked into one particular method of working. Okay, so same thing though, same environment with the dark top. And let's get our circular brush and let's see. Let's just pick this color. I have no idea. Block in this purplish sphere. Maybe the ground in this environment gets greener. Oh, I should probably mention I'm using a split complementary palette now, as you probably already noticed. Actually, let's just use the lasso tool here to draw a rectangle and block in a floor. Messily painting right over the ball, but that's okay. Get it right back. If Photoshop mixes colors and it comes up with this sort of muted orange, that's part of our palette, right? It's somewhere in there, so that's okay. So long as you're sampling within this range, whatever mixture Photoshop gives you is totally fine. Let's see what happens if we like make the shadow really red and test the idea that harmony will happen just by nature of this limited palette. So something way there, and we'll make the shadow softer in this one. Also soften up this sort of transition from table to background here too. What happens if we even use like grayish greens in the lightest part? This is off the beaten path here. Now I still want the ball to look purple, so I got to make sure that I don't just go green with the light and purple with the shadow. It's got to remain somewhat consistent. So the key there is keep things in the grays. It is a purple ball. I just want hints of that cooler green up top. So let's keep the purple intact as we go down, and maybe as the shadow deepens, it gets redder. So I'm selecting my red, which is around here. It's legal in this palette. And see, now I have kind of two halves. So let's see if I can work this. Let's bring some of this green into the ball in shadow, and also some of the purples into the ball in light. And we'll kind of like weave these colors together, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of painting and sampling and picking the result and painting with that. I want to see if I can make this ball feel like it's a purple ball, but with just these notes of the green in it. And if it doesn't work, like, it's not that all of this stuff will work. If it doesn't work, you've quickly discovered one of the limits of the palette, maybe. If it does work, great. You've learned a new application for it. Let's see, I want it to go redder as the shadow deepens, didn't I? So let's do that. And a couple of these purples in the background here. Maybe as the ground ascends in distance, as the distance increases, some of those purples start coming into play. See, the thing that you want to try and avoid is having the picture just made of one color in a section. Like, this is all red right now. And while that's okay, like, it worked okay in our complementary palette in the last study, but in this one, because I have more colors, I feel the need to have those colors embed themselves in more areas of the painting. So maybe the reds start to take over as we get up here to the top of the picture and become slightly more purpley as we go down. Just trying to build in some kind of structure for myself there. Just a logic, like as the color flows this way, it gets more purple, you know. See, those greens need to come back. I've lost them. Let's see if I can do this. I wonder if some of the ground can start receiving a few of those greens, and maybe into the shadows as well. That's a bit interesting. And then that ball just needs to feel more like one cohesive surface. I'm kind of splitting the light and shadows too much. The colors are changing too much between light and shadow. That ball has to still feel purplish, so I'm trying to get some of those back. Let's get a highlight in, which always counts for something. If the light's coming from above, it might be hitting it there. And get in some of our ambient occlusion, that deep dark shadow there. And I'm struggling more with this one, as you can probably tell. There are hints of green in the ball, echoed by hints of green on this floor here, and I'll push this a bit, amplify the greens a little bit, just to visually tip off the viewer, like, hey, there are greens in here, but they're kept very subtle. They're third in the hierarchy. Reds might be number 1, purples would be number 2 in terms of saturation, then the greens are number 3. But they are there, and I might even bring them back in the light. So you can see that I've wrestled with this palette a little bit, but like I feel like I'm exploring its potential and just trying to handpick those greens. Again, if I'm a little off, I really don't care, as long as you're exploring the spirit of these palettes. So obviously I've done a complementary here and now a split complementary, but you can do any palette, and it doesn't have to be any palette that I've suggested. You can make up your own. Pick some hues that you want to use, pick some saturations that you want to limit yourself to, which is always a good idea, and explore that palette. Make up your own palette. Pick 3 colors that don't fall in a nice split complementary like this, kind of like the Dominique Louis Ratatouille color key we looked at in the previous section. So something like this is now starting to speak to me here. I like this little bit of reflected light bouncing up into the ball. Maybe there'd be this intense bright red, might spill, just like a lens effect. It might wrap itself into the ball a little bit, spill into it. Like if you take a photograph of a very bright light, it kind of bleeds into other things. It's kind of what I'm seeing here. This environment doesn't need much, but just finish it off with some, like a little vignette here. Maybe take that same color and vignette the bottom. like this. There we go. And now we have our second study. I feel like I haven't spent too much time on this. I'm still not done my coffee, my hypothetical coffee that I'm not actually drinking right now because audio-wise that would annoy everyone. But there we go. Look at that. That's a cohesive little palette study. I can throw these back to back, which I recommend you do after collecting a few of these, and evaluate the mood. How do these colors make you feel? Would they fit well with a certain light scenario you have in mind, or a certain subject matter? Or do they match a certain emotion? Those questions are up to you to decide, but as far as study goes, this is a very useful, quick way to get your feet wet, and more than that, to truly explore the intricacies of how colors can link together as part of a palette.